Eden. In the beginning, in the Garden of Eden, our relationship with God was free of the barriers that sin created when the fall of man occurred. As Genesis 3:8 indicates, God was strolling through the garden looking for Adam and Eve. When they heard the sound of God strolling in the garden in the evening breeze, the man and his wife hid in the trees of the garden, hid from God. Genesis 3:23 through 24 tells us about the separation that developed between God and us because of sin. So God expelled them from the Garden of Eden and sent them to work the ground, the same dirt of which they had been made. He threw them out of the garden and stationed angel cherubim and a revolving sword of fire east of it, guarding the path to the tree of life.
Impact of sin on our relationship to God. When Moses came close to the burning bush on Mount Horeb, Exodus 3:5 tells us God told him, "Do not come any closer. Take off your sandals, for the place where you are standing is holy ground." Isaiah wrote about being in the presence of the holiness of God when he was called to be a prophet. "I saw the Lord, high and exalted, seated on a throne, and the train of his robe filled the temple. Above him were seraphim, each with 6 wings. With 2 wings they covered their faces, with 2 they covered their feet, with 2 they were flying. And they were calling to one another, 'Holy, holy, holy is the Lord Almighty. The whole earth is full of his glory.' At the sound of their voices, the doorposts and thresholds shook, and the temple was filled with smoke. 'Woe to me,' I cried. 'I am ruined, for I am a man of unclean lips, and I live among a people of unclean lips, and my eyes have seen the King, the Lord Almighty.'" Next to the holiness of God, Isaiah was frightened by becoming fully aware of his sinfulness. In Leviticus 11:44-45, God commands us to be consecrated or set apart from sin, saying, "I am the Lord your God. Consecrate yourselves and be holy, because I am holy. Do not make yourselves unclean by any creature that moves along the ground. I am the Lord, who brought you up out of Egypt to be your God. Therefore, be holy, because I am holy." God calls us to be set apart from sin in order to be in a relationship with him.
Mount Sinai. Without consecration, without being set apart from sin, being in the presence of God's holiness is fatal. Earlier in our studies of Exodus chapter 19, we reviewed the Lord commanding Moses about the consecration of the people at Mount Sinai. And the Lord said to Moses, "Go to the people and consecrate them today and tomorrow. Have them wash their clothes and be ready by the 3rd day. Because on that day the Lord will come down on Mount Sinai in the sight of all people. Put limits for the people around the mountain and tell them, 'Be careful that you do not approach the mountain or touch the foot of it. Whoever touches the mountain is to be put to death.' Then God appeared on mountain as fire and smoke. On the morning of the 3rd day, there was thunder and lightning with a thick cloud over the mountain and a very loud trumpet blast. Everyone in the camp trembled. Then Moses led the people out of the camp to meet with God, and they stood at the foot of the mountain. Mount Sinai was covered with smoke because the Lord descended in fire. The smoke billowed up from it like smoke from a furnace, and the whole mountain trembled violently as the sound of the trumpet grew louder and louder. Moses spoke, and the voice of God answered him. The Lord descended to the top of Mount Sinai and called Moses to the top of the mountain. So Moses went up, and the Lord said to him, "Go down and warn the people, so they do not force their way through to see the Lord," and many of them perished.